Hello everyone and welcome back to Brigade. My name is Bryan. If you are new to my show, we talk about basically Kickstarters, retail games, lifestyle, whatever, basically anything revolving around board games. And today we're talking about Arcs by Leader Games and whether or not you should be considering backing this game, maybe help you get some more information on this campaign to help you make the best backing decision. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hit the campaign. So right off the bat, we are on day 15 at the time of this recording, just shy of 10,000 backers and just shy of $1 million. So congratulations, Leader Games. They are definitely killing it. So right off the bat, we're going to talk about what is Arcs, give you guys a little brief overview of the gameplay so you guys can understand what we're talking about. And then we're going to talk about the pledge levels and give you my final thoughts, whether or not this is a good financial decision or just a decision in general for backing this game. So what is Arcs? Well, right off the bat, it's a 4X game where players are going to compete by expanding, exploiting, exterminating, and exploring this galaxy on the map. Pretty traditional 4X there. So what is unique about Arcs? Well, it's going to be using a trick-taking system. If we scroll down here, you can get an idea of what we're looking at, where players are going to be playing cards from their hands to take their actions for that round based on the initiative leader's suit. So in this example, we have the lead card. That is the initiative leader. They're playing this suit of that kind of star looking thing. And this also indicates how many actions you're going to be taking on that card, or how many you're going to be taking that round. What I like about this example is it's showing someone playing an offsuit card as well as someone playing a face down card. These are both options you can do if you don't either have a suit that's being played, or if you really need to take another action that's in a different suit, you are able to do that. Or if you can you want to copy the lead card, that's what the face down cards do. So they are options for you to be able to do things to still give you some agency in what you want to do. You just don't get as many or as good of actions if you were to play something in suit. If you want to take the initiative for yourself next round, you have to play an in-color suit card as well as have the highest number. If you look at the top left corner, there's a number, and then for the next round you will have initiative and you get to decide what is ever going to be doing for that round. The battles are also different for this one because you have kind of a push your luck dice rolling aspect where you get to choose your dice. There's one that's a little bit more forgiving for yourself in terms of dealing damage, but it doesn't deal as much damage to your opponents. There's one that can steal cards from your opponents, so you basically can get rewards, but it's kind of hazardous to yourself. You're kind of doing like a kamikaze mission. And there's one that can also deal a lot more damage to your opponent, but again, deals damage to yourself. So you kind of have to decide which dice you're going to roll. I like that element a lot. And then they're going to be introducing an innovative campaign. There are 2 different pledge levels. We'll talk about that when we get to the pledge levels. But right here off the bat, you can see that there is a smaller map. This is the base game map. It's a 4-panel map basically for players to play in. When we're looking at the campaign version, it offers up to a 6-panel campaign for players to explore and play around with. I really like that design. And then with that, that's basically the gameplay rules. So we are going to dive into the pledge levels. So I said there are 3 different pledge levels. One of is purely a cosmetic upgrade. So we'll talk about that in a second. We have to go to the right pledge levels first. The first one is the $60 base game pledge level. It's also going to be including the More to Explore pack, which basically just includes a bunch more cards to enhance this base game, which is important to note. So if you are a retail shopper, if you're a person who likes to wait for retail, most likely this More Packs to Explore will be available at retail, but it's not going to be included for free if you were to back this game now. I definitely think these are always great because in games like this, enhancing the base game with more cards gives you that more variety. So the base game will include all the wooden meeples, dice, cards available for playing. You'll notice that these wooden meeples are not screen printed, and this is kind of interesting for Leader Games because all of their games have had beautiful screen printing to denote what kind of character that was, to give them some kind of I want to say character again because that's kind of what it did, but they're choosing not to do that this time. And the reason they're doing that is because of the mechanic of where you take damage, you have to turn your characters to the side, and they're afraid that if you turn it to the wrong side, it might confuse people. I'm a little upset because I think it could have been, I would have really appreciated some beautiful screen printing for these guys. They just have such beautiful art. I would love to have seen that visualized onto these wooden meeples. For $100, this is probably the pledge that I would recommend starting at for myself based on everything I've seen in terms of reviews and gameplay. And that is the Blighted Campaign expansion extension for the base game. So you're going to be getting the base game. You're going to get that more Explorer cards. But you're going to be getting that Blighted Reach campaign, which is going to be adding a bunch more stuff for you to play around with, as well as that bigger map. And the reason why I like this pledge level is because at the start of the game, all the players are symmetrical. They all have the same faction, same techs. They're all part of the same empire. But then as the game goes, players are able to expand and they're able to research and kind of make their faction their own by becoming that more asymmetrical faction. But in the arcade mode, in the base game, there's not enough rounds for players to really feel the power of the tech that they did or feel the uniqueness, and sometimes it might not even be worth researching the tech because there's just not enough rounds. With the campaign extension, you're able to actually experience and kind of explore some of those different types of techs and kind of really feel the uniqueness of your faction as it's expanding through that trilogy of 3 different games. I really like that, and I think that's probably the unique selling point that I would be looking at for ARX, and why I'd recommend the base pledge for me is probably this $100 one. And if you look at the pledge rewards here, in terms of the backer count, we have 466 for the base, but we have 2,839 for this $100 one, so which you guys cannot see. But that kind of shows what I'm kind of referring to, that this is kind of the base starting pledge. And from what I'm seeing, this is probably fun, but I get nervous about the longevity in terms of how long I would want to have this in my collection versus something that has a lot more staying room, where you can still play the base game, you can still play the arcade mode, but you have a lot more flexibility in terms of how much you want to get out of your campaign. And then for $150, so you're adding $50 to your pledge, you're going to be basically paying for $50 for those miniatures to basically give you some little bit more tactile feel to your game. This is the one that I would say, I would argue, is probably the least enticing for me, because you are paying $50 more for miniatures and nothing else for the gameplay related elements. So if you are looking for just a deluxeification upgrade, that's what you're looking at. We're going to talk about a little bit more in the final thoughts section about which one I think, why I would back each one. But that's basically all the $150 MSRP or whatever the pledge level is, purely just a cosmetics upgrade, adding in these miniatures with their wash. This one does have the most backers. You can't see it right now because of my face, but it's got 4,459, so definitely has the most. If we scroll on down for shipping, this is the other thing we always have to consider. First off, VAT is going to be charged at the end of the campaign in the Pledge Manager. So if you are EU or have anywhere that has VAT, make sure you take a look at that. And then continental US, estimated shipping for USD is $25 roughly. So make sure you are aware of that. Okay, so that is ARX in a nutshell. We're going to take a look at one thing before we go, and that is talking about the value. Because I do think we're getting less value, unfortunately, from this game than we have in other Leader Games Kickstarter projects. For example, if we take a look at one of their previous campaigns, scroll up, please. If we take a look at one of their previous campaigns, we're going to go right here and take a look at Oath. Oath is a good example. It's got 200 cards. It's got meeples. It's got a playmat. So we have 100 plus wooden screen printed meeples. So we're getting more wooden meeples. Base game, you have 100 extra cards, but again, we're not including that bonus pack of cards. You're also getting the premium game mat, and well as any insert compatible whatever. So this was $90, this pledge. This was a $90 pledge. If we compare that back with ARX, we kind of would have to compare that with this one. This would be the $100 pledge. This is probably going to be the closest comparable. So in terms of price, we're close in terms of price, but in terms of quantity of items we're getting, obviously you can see that Oath was a better value in terms of that. But the one thing I want to talk about is they says 150 total value here, probably close. I think they listed the MSRP like 105 en route. Where was that at? Where God, your guys' campaign pages are so hard to navigate sometimes. They're listing these things at $30 MRP. All right, here, 110. It was right here right in front of my face. 110 MSRP. Let's go ahead and pull up Amazon. I had this up, but I obviously closed it. Let me take a look at Oath and drag this over here. So one thing I want to take a look at, because we're going to be talking about the picking things up at retail. If you are a person who likes to pick things up at retail, Leader Games Oath Chronicles, this is the same pledge level minus the Kickstarter exclusives, $90, free shipping. So just take a note of that as we are kind of talking about all this stuff and going back to ARCs. So first off, is there an incentive to back ARCs? Well, there's no Kickstarter exclusives that I could see in this campaign. So everything that you're seeing on this page should be readily available at retail. I just don't know what pledge level they're going to release at retail. Are they going to do both a miniature and the wooden meeples? I don't know. So if you're nervous about wanting the miniatures, I would probably back, if like you're a person who wants the miniatures, I would back the miniatures, because I don't know if they're going to release the miniature version at retail. I have a sneaking suspicion they'll probably release the wooden version, the wooden meeple version, with the campaign blighted expansion as add-ons, but I don't know about the miniature version. I would be less inclined to say that. And the only probably reason you're going to be able to see the miniature versions if you have an LGS who backs that level, and then of course they're going to have limited copies based on what they were able to pledge for. If you're a person who is wanting to be very conscious about the amount of money they're spending on a retail or on a game, I definitely think that this will be available at retail for less than what you're seeing here on the campaign page, or the same price minus the cost of that $25 shipping. So make sure you're aware of that. I think ARCs looks good, and I want the game. I think it would be a fun campaign game to add to my collection. I always like 4X games, and I like interesting mechanics with those games that are kind of different to explore with. So I think that's good. I'm just not sure if there's enough incentive to back this unless you're someone who's unsure if you're going to be able to find it in your local region, retail, or through Amazon or something. So that's what I would say. So hopefully this video was somewhat helpful for you, kind of making the backing decisions regarding this game. I don't want to make sure I'm not poo-pooing on ARCs. I just think there's less incentive here than I normally see for people to back now than just to wait for retail versions. Plus, you can see how the game has shifted. A good example of this is Oath. I didn't play Oath in terms of its pre-release, but I heard a lot of people say that the game shifted a lot from that point to release. So that potentially could happen now as well with ARCs. So if you're a person who likes to play things cautiously, either I would back at $1 because there's no reason not to back at $1, and then you can see your true shipping costs and see how everything kind of plays out, and then go from there, or wait for retail. If I'm going to be backing this game, I'm probably going to be backing at $1, and then I'll take a look at the campaign once the PM comes out, get a really good idea of the shipping costs. Plus, it helps me cool down on any FOMO that I might have, that fear of missing out, and make the best backing decision possible. So that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up. If this video was helpful for you, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow. We're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're kind of shaky in terms of if we can hit that, but any kind of subscription helps. If you also want to really support the channel, make sure you hit the thumbs up, like us, share this video with a friend. It turns out sharing is probably the best way to get algorithm views. So thank you for everyone who does that. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys very soon. Thanks for supporting the channel. Bye-bye.